Hi, and welcome to Tools on Tech. Today we're talking about comparing code and resolving merge conflicts. I will also give you free tips to avoiding those in the first place. Now, I needed someone to get into conflict with, so I'm introducing Bob, my fluffy co-worker during this presentation. Because everybody needs a fluffy friend, right? At the end of this video, you should know how to resolve merge conflicts and be okay with it. It's never really gonna be fun, so better rip off that band-aid right now. And let's jump into it. So let's start with comparing some code. I prepared a small example and you can create this by using the code in the description. I will also put a link to a GitLab repository there so that you can clone it for a fresh copy. As you can see, I have a very simple Git tree set up with two branches, Master and Bob. Let's see what happens if we compare the two branches. So I do a git diff between Master and Bob. Now the diff shows that there's one file that's going to get added, and let's see if we can bring these two branches into sync. So as you can see, there are a couple of differences. There's a line change, and this is something we went through in one of the previous videos. So if I'm going to merge Master into Bob here, and you paid attention, then you should know what happens. We check out Bob and we do a merge of Master and nothing happens. And this is because Git only merges changes. If you look in the graph, you'll see that Bob already has all Master's changes. So this is how you can get, even when you have a diff and it shows a difference and you try to merge, it doesn't show you any changes. It's because you are somewhere in the tree. Now if we do the reverse and I check out Master and I merge into Bob, then you do see that the change gets pulled over. Now let's do the same thing but have a conflict and see how you have to resolve that. Bob and me got into a small argument. We both wanted to update the file and switch the character to Darth Vader. Bob, however, wanted to use his original name, Anakin. Clearly, he's wrong. In the diagram we see the two changes. One is my change in Master and the other one is Bob's change in his own branch. We have the two changes that aren't related and they are in the same file. Since Bob refuses to resolve the conflict, being a cat and all, I'm going to do it. So I do a git merge Bob to merge his branch into mine, and immediately Git tells me that I have a conflict. Doing a git status will always tell you which files have a conflict. So in this case you see that the README has issues. Now I am going to open it. And you can clearly see both changes and that they are marked with arrows. We are going to remove the markings and pick one line to win. Because Bob is lying in the sun, let's pick mine. Head is mine, and this one's Bob. So I'm removing that one, switching to that, and now it looks all great. I'm going to write it, tell Git that this can be added. So I tell Git that it's resolved. I do a commit, fix readme, and now you can see in the Git graph that they are merged. And if I cut the readme file, then my changes are in there. So this is good. Now I'm going to tell Git that I want my changes to be kept regardless. I reset the repository and will do another merge, but this time I will tell Git what I want up front. And I can do this by adding -x hours. So I wanted to keep hour changes. I do a git merge Bob -x hours. And as you can see, there is no conflict that I need to resolve. I can just commit and it's done. So if I cut the README file, you can clearly see that my change is in there. And if I do the graph log, you see the same thing after we did it manually. So you see the branching of Bob and you see that it's combined in a new commit in Master. Much quicker than manually typing it. If you know up front that you want your changes, this is the way to go. Now I'm going to do the same thing, so I reverted back to the previous example, but in this time we'll pick Bob's change. So we do git merge, we say -x, we say pick theirs, and merge Bob. As you can see in the log graph, we're still on master, so we get the same setup. And if I do another log, you'll see that it gets merged again. But if we cut the README now, you'll see that it's picked Bob's side. So these merge strategies help you to not having to edit files, or if there's lots of small things that you know you're going to pick your side or their side. This will save you tons of time in the future. Now let's look at a few other strategies that you can apply. So there are a couple of strategies, and I'm going to show you one more. And this one ignores white space. So sometimes you have a file, looking in the graph, Bob's been working behind my back, which he always does, and I'm going to clean up the README. I added a small block here, and I'm looking at it and go like, no, it's just like wrong, this needs to be here, the spaces need to be like this. And I think it even needs to go a bit like this. So I'm changing a lot of white space here, and in most programming languages, changing the white space in itself doesn't affect the code as much. I'm going to commit this, fix spacing, forgot the -a, and now if I try to merge Bob into here, I get a conflict. And I get a conflict because he made some changes in the place where I did the space savings. Now I can manually fix this because it's very small, but if you have like a large file and people have been messing with white space, you want to get some work done. So let's fix the code merge first, and then you can always redo the white space later. What I'm going to do now is called a reset hard, and it's something you have to be very careful with. It resets Git back to the last commit you had, and it will also remove any files that it changed or that you changed. So you can actually lose files with this. Now I'm back and clean, and now I'm going to say git merge, and I'm going to merge Bob, and I'm going to pick a strategy. And the strategy we're going to pick now is ignore space change. So I'm going to ignore all spaces. You have a more specific one, or like a larger one, that ignore all space, but in this case we just want to ignore space change, so anything that got moved. Now doing that, it happily accepts my change, resolves. I get the changes that Bob made, so he changed the naming in here, and I'll have to redo my white space, but it's better than manually fixing it. Now let's get into the tips. So, as promised, 3 tips to have less merge conflicts. The first tip is very basic and easy, and that is do frequent git pulls or merges. I can't stress this enough. It's trivial to just do a quick git pull before you start doing code. And if that git pull brings in a change your coworker made and you're changing code in the same file, that means there is no conflict because you start with the changed file. So get into the habit before you make a code change, before you do anything. End of the day, commit your code. Start of the day, do a git pull and get those changes in. Easy trick, often forgotten. Second one, if you have a large file and it gets changed on multiple occasions often, this happens very often with configuration, see if it's possible to split the file up in a config.t directory. It sounds very trivial, and most of these tips are, but that's why they work. You make separate files, usually use a number like 001, 002, put these in a directory, and then at the build process, or when you need them, you cut the files together. It's a one-liner in shell. I'll put an example in the description about it. And the third tip, if you have a list of values in your code or anything you're writing down, and it's possible, sort the list. By having the list sorted, there will be less conflicts because it's easier to diff. And if one of your coworkers adds a value or you change a value, it's also very easy to spot duplicate values or values get added and removed at the same time. So use the sort function. Find it. It's in nearly every editor. I know for sure it's in Vim. I know for sure it's in Visual Code Editor. Sort your values. Simple stuff, but it keeps your code clean and your mind sane. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you learned something about merge conflicts and how to resolve them. It's usually done locally. You can also do it online with GitLab and GitHub. They're adding tools to be able to do so. But doing it locally means that you get to make mistakes, which is much easier than doing it online where everything that you commit automatically gets added to the tree. So I'm trying to make these videos every 2 weeks and release them on Monday. Be sure to like, subscribe and click the bell icon if you want a YouTube pop-up notification. And remember, you're awesome, keep it up.